In today's video, I want to share with you 5 photography tips and tricks that have helped me and will hopefully help you upgrade your photography skills. Let's go. What's going on, everybody? This is Christian here. Today we're talking 5 things you could do as a beginner photographer to help you step up to the next level in your photography. Tip number 1 is to shoot in manual mode. Now, there was a time when I wasn't comfortable shooting in manual mode. I just always had my camera in automatic, didn't know what I was doing, but stepping up to the next level meant shooting in manual mode. Now, in manual, you have control over basically everything in your camera, and it was a little bit daunting at first to get used to it. But part of becoming comfortable in shooting in manual is learning that it's a process. And you have to give yourself a little bit of leeway and understanding that you're going to mess things up sometimes and you're going to get some stuff right. So understanding that is part of the process. So I looked up some videos on YouTube, read my manual for my camera, and I started learning about what to do, what manual mode allowed me to do, how to change the aperture, the f-stop, the shutter speed, all of those things I learned, and then I became comfortable in shooting in manual mode. Rest assured, you can learn it and it will become easier eventually. Tip number 2 is shoot in autofocus. So for a long time before getting into photography, I thought the photographers who were professional always did manual focus on their lenses, and that's not really true. Shooting in autofocus is kind of the standard, and it's a lot faster than what we would focus if we had to do it by hand. I found that it really works well for me, and that's what I do with all of my shoots. Remember that there's often a toggle switch on the lens itself that allows you to go from autofocus to manual focus. So if it's defaulted to manual focus, you might have to switch that to autofocus for it to work with your camera. Tip number 3, focus, then frame the shot. So I use this, and I learned this pretty early on in my photography, and I use this all the time. This is really like trick number 1, it should be. So what you do here is you focus your shot, so you half press the shutter button, you focus your shot on what your subject, on what you're trying to photograph, and then while holding down the half pressed shutter button, you recompose the shot and then take the shot. What you're essentially doing in that is focusing on the subject first and then moving and taking the shot. If you have a fancy DSLR, you are able to choose the focus point in your camera. By default, most of the DSLRs are defaulted to focus on this very center of the lens. And you can choose something different if you wanted to, but if you wanted to keep it at the center, you can focus on your subject, and then if you don't want them to be in the center of the final image, you recompose and take the shot. Tip number 4 is use the live view mode. So what I do in my shoots is I use the live view mode to compose my shot, to figure out the exposure, the ISO, the shutter speed, aperture, all that, before I take the shot, and then I take the shot after I've composed it all with the view back there. The benefit to using live view is that I can see what I'm going to take before I take it, and I can make my adjustments and see in real time what the end result image is going to look like. So what I'm talking about is there's a start-stop button on a lot of Canon cameras, and it might be on Nikons and some other brands, but I hit the start-stop button, I view what image I'm going to take, I make my adjustments, make sure that I'm getting everything the way I want it, and then I take the shot from the viewfinder. Note, not all DSLR cameras will have this function. Perhaps some entry-level cameras or some older models won't have this, but if yours does, I use it all the time. And tip number 5 is use YouTube as an educational resource. Now, when I was starting photography, I was kind of starting cold turkey, so I didn't know much about cameras, about posing, about anything in photography. And I used YouTube to learn through some other people's channels, to learn about my camera, to learn about posing, about lighting, about all different aspects of photography, and it's been really helpful in my photography career. I particularly don't like to read, so watching videos really helps me as a visual learner and a visual person. So if you are that way, use YouTube to your advantage. And that's all I got for you guys today. Leave a comment below if you have any other tips and tricks to your photography. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.